Okay, and now let's start afterwards. Now, in it further observed, the Perseus roads, the building was converted into an observatory by Jay Singh in AD 1680s and referred to the supposed description of its tavernier, that dismissing all these and other dates. Okay, that prescription with the fortnight, and Tavier died in 1689, 3 years after Jaisingh's birth. So, he's just writing that how this Jaisingh has done it all the works, and how whatever things he has presented, based on that only he has written all the things. Then this author concluded that Williams uh, date for the observatory at Benares, okay, 1737, may be accepted, as he all on all points that can be verified is extremely reliable, and quoted Hunter as specify as speaking of the accuracy of Mr. Williams' measurements. So he's having always having questions on Mr. Williams, whatever he is searching in India and all. So he's always having particular doubts on that. So that's why he quoted all times, like whatever he has presented, whatever he quoted in his research. So we'll go further. Then the 18th century date of Benares Observatory thus reset on the two articles published in 1793 and 1798 respectively. The first at the instance of a fellow of the Royal Society, and second in a longer piece wishing to convince the Eastern nation of the superiority of European 18th century science, with a view of to contribute more to the extension of our national glory. That okay, what Tavernier said in his published Travelers was that near to this great pagod upon the suffer upon the summer west stand a kind of college with the Raja Jaisingh, the most potent of all the ideologies in the Mughals empire, built for the education of the youth of the better sort. Then Tanvir visited Benares in 1655 and 66, and it may be added that quite a few Jaisinghs, spelled variously, have been Rajas of Ambheri through the centuries. It is possible that this fact was also contributed to different writers claiming widely separated dates for the construction of Benares Observatory. So different peoples came in Banaras. They have given their information and given their inputs and at various times. Okay, some peoples they have given in 1793, 1798, and some peoples they have given information in the year of 1655, 56 around. Okay, so and then further, then rather curious point arises here out of this chronology about the dating of the Benares Observatory. The Barker, along with the Persis and Campbell, visited the observatory in 1772. If the observatory was actually built in 1737, then it was only 35 years old at this time. Both Barber Parker and Persis especially state that it had been there for some 2 centuries. Okay, so some whatever things they are writing up, there's always some contradictory in that. So like Campbell is visited, he's saying 1772, and the observatory, the actually it's built in 1737, so it's around 35 years old only. So these all like so many points, we found that there is a mismatch in the statements. So they must have arrived at this statement after meeting and conversing with the person or who if the observatory had been constructed only 35 years previously, then must have been an EV witness to this construction. As there was no controversy in 1772 about the date of the construction of the observatory, it is inconceivable that Barker informants misled him on this point. The conversations of 2 centuries into 35 years is the most fabulous aspect of this later controversy. So we now in this there are a lot of controversies he found in that writings, whatever given informations in our books. That all whatever controversies are there, he noted down and he has presented in his this book. Okay, then we'll go further. Next in the long and learned review, chapter 2, remark of the astronomy of the Brahmins by John Playfair, read by him in 1789. In this article, the author begins by referring to certain astronomical tables recited from the East India by European scholars at any earlier stage in their contact with the East. Some of these tables were received from Siam and their epochs correspondent to 21st March 638 AD. But the point to note was that the meridians of these tables was not Siam's but Benarasi's. So, like lot of people they change the name also, like from Siams to Banarasi. Okay, like from Banarasi to Sims, they have changed the name. Okay, these all things John Playfair. He's the actual person who is doing all these things, which like playing in front of like Brahmins. Okay, you don't want that Banaras Brahmins, whatever actually these people are doing, that effects will go to that our Indian peoples. So they will always change that sometimes the names and sometimes that dates of that particular whatever happenings was there, that even the dates also they are changing. So okay, now we'll go further. Then other tables received from South India had one thing in common, their epochs, and coincides with the era of Kali Yuga, that is with the beginning of the year 3102 BC. Professor Playfair begins by inquiring whether the epoch was real or fictitious. That is where the planetary position at that time were actually observed or were merely calculated back from the epoxy of more modern table to coincide with the magical Kali Yuga. So in that he has whatever the Playfair he has written in his books. So these are all things which are not matching, which our he has given the information and whatever is written in our textbooks. Okay, which Dharampal ji got it later. So then Professor Playfair observed that it is more for astronomy, even in its most perfect state, to go back 46th century and to ascertain the situation of the heavenly bodies at so remote a period, except with the help of lately developed integral calculus and the theory of gravitation. He finds that the position of the planet as given in these tables is very close to the position as calculated back with the help of modern integral calculus and the theory of gravitation. All other system of calculation, whether that other Egyptians and Greeks and with the Hindus might have used for their purpose, gave very different results. So whatever Playfair got the information that whatever distance and whatever constellations different at different states and different places, there's all like matching. The calculations of that particular galaxies are totally matching, which given by the Hindus Brahmins. Okay, in their Vedas. So but other peoples like from Egyptian and Greeks, their calculations are very difficult, very different from that which our Indians they have given. So that he has presented in that, and so for him the incapable conclusions is that these positions were observed by the Brahmins, and it is rather a wonder that Brahmins could do so rather precisely at so distant a past. So Professor Playfair also observed that the constructions of these tables implied a good knowledge of geometry and arithmetic, as well as the position of calculus method to trigonometry. So, as per the trigonometry, arithmetic, and geometry, whatever aspects are given by the Brahmins is totally matching. Whatever presently, like we are also got the informations that Jupiter is this much of far, Pluto is this much of far. So all informations are matching. Okay, whatever information is given by the Brahmins. So now the paper chapter 4 by Colonel T.D. Percy, sent by him to the Royal Society, London, and surviving in their archives, refer to the Indian knowledge of the four satellites of Jupiter and even satellites of Saturn. Peirce further felt that the Indian must have possessed some kind of telescopic instruments to have acquired much detailed knowledge. The author of Percy memorized while including a slightly modified version of these pieces in the memory states. So they're always thinking that how these Indian peoples they are always doing the calculations 100% correct only. So they are thinking that might be they are having the telescopic instrument with them, but that is not the case. We are having our whatever Vedas and our from Gurukul whatever educations will be there. From there only we drive this much of knowledge to get it exact distance between the planets and satellites. Okay, then we'll go further. We cannot pass this interestingly communication without offering some reflections upon the subject it embraces. The circumstances of four girls dancing around the figure of Jupiter as they ought to be the according of Brahmin statement. उसके बाद that Jupiter as thought of according to the Brahmin statement to Colonel Percy is a strong argument in favor of the superior knowledge of heavenly body which is excellent Armenians Hindus possessed. The four dancing girls eventually presented in four satellites of Jupiter. These Carolus satellites, as they are styled by the modern astronomers from the query of their motion in their orbits. So, were not known by the European before the year 1609. So whatever like Indian peoples they already have the information on it, but European they got it information very late because they got that they got all the text from India only. Then they have read all these things and then only they have produced that okay this much of planets are there, this much of distance is there, and everything they got it afterwards only once they read all the Indians documents which were there in our Gurukuls, and the third and fourth only are visible, and this but rarely and in the clearest atmosphere to the naked eye. But it is truly interesting and crucial that the figure of Saturn should be represented in the seventh arm. At the time Colonel Persis wrote this letter to the Royal Society, the sixth satellite of Saturn had not been discovered. It was first discovered by Herschel on the 28th August 1789. The seventh satellite, which the 17th arm of the figure, without dispute, must be intended to represent, was not discovered by Herschel until he had completed his grand telescope of 40 feet focal length, with it has been first observed by him on the 17th September 1789. All the satellites of Saturn are so small and the planet is so remote from the Earth that the best telescope are necessary for observing them may not be 17th arm having hold on the ring, denote as circumstance connected with the orbits of this planet, which is that plane of their orbit so nearly accord with that of a ring that the difference is not perceivable. Undoubtedly, the ancient astrologers must have possessed the best instruments, probably differing from modern one, but fully as powerful. So they have checked whatever instruments they are having and how they are doing that calculation part and all. So they are simply wondered how Indians are doing that particular before, even though they are not knowing also. So they are always wondered whatever they got the information in their gurukuls. Okay, so now the writer added further, we are not aware that the Royal Society in any of its printed paper have noticed colonial purses communication, but our emanations warmly interested as it has been in all that relatives to the subject of the present memories have pictured the probability that Colonel Percy's paper may have met the eye of Herschel and may have been an additional sport to the indefatigably and wonderful labors of that great man. So he has written all this thing, and then Rion Buron's unpublished paper, chapter 3, was added to the British Governor General Warren Hastings uh, soon after Buron had come into India to take up his new job at Calcutta. It is highly persuadable, and in the way is more the line with the contemporary intellectual tradition of European enlightenment of the 18th century. So in this case, this guy again came to India like Reuben Burroughs, okay, and then from British governors, which is like addressing to British governors only, and then he has checked all that documents. He has his new job is there in Calcutta, which they have posted to get all the informations about history of our Indians and all everything, so that they can change it according to them. Okay, so they have started working on that. So and then the late 19th century dictum, the expect the blind force of nature, nothing moves in the world which is not Greek in its origin, in united by a marine one times law member of the government general council in India, that is by the that the name was there, was merely an intellectual and scholarly expressed by the mounting Eurocentric chapter of its speculativeness. Okay, and scholarly lativeness. Through in itself, it does not provide much factual dates and perhaps uh, come to even several erroneous conclusions as we would see them today. It's very speculative seem to have provided, especially on stimulus to the number of consequent inquiries about Indian science, particularly mathematics. The article, the proof that the Hindus had the Banal theory, and by Brown himself, the later dissertations by H.T. Colebrook of Hindu algebra, given an introduction to his translation of algebra with arithmetic and measurements. Okay, and that Burma Gupta and Brashkara, and decidedly follow such speculative acknowledging Burroughs' contributions, particularly in bringing Indian algebra to the notice of Europeans. The article on algebra in the Encyclopedia Britannica 8th edition stated. So these all things are given in that particular encyclopedia Britannica 8th edition. Okay, so we are indebted. We believe that Mr. Ribbon Buron for some of its earliest notice, which reached Europe on this very crucial subject. His eagerness to illustrate the history of mathematical science led him to collect original manuscripts, some of which is the Persian language, with partial translations, were inquired to his friend Mr. Dalby of the Royal Military College, who communicated them to such as took an interest in the subject about the year 1800. The article, the chapter 5 on the binomial theory, was published in 1790 in Calcutta. Till then, the British reference book like Encyclopedia Britannica well into the 20th century. The discovery of the theorem had been credited to Newton. Okay, some 30 years later. Buron's article was followed by another titled essay on the Bacon theorem, as known as the Arabs. The this later article was a sequel to the first by the R. Buron, and it concludes. It plainly appears that whatever may have been the case in Europe, yet long before the time of Briggs, the Arabians were acquainted with the binomial theorem. So they are just discussing on the binomial theorem, and they got that from where and the Brahmins and all like Indians, they got this information. So then they have started changing their books, okay, as per their requirements, so that and they have given this credited some of the theorems to the Newton also. Okay, so these all things they are doing, whatever they are first trying to extract the things from our textbooks, and then they will find out how we can give these numbers to some other person, so that they will be more popular all across the world. And the person who have actually discovered that things like from India, they should not be like getting credit on that. Okay, so these all things are there. So then, this later author quoted Dr. Buton concerning the origin of binomial theorem in Europe. The following from the longer extract of Buton account in worth quoting. The Lucas D. Burgo extracted the cube root by the same coefficient about the year 1417. Briggs was the first who taught the rule of generating the coefficient of terms successfully on from another of any power of binomial independently independently of those of any other power. This theorem then being thus plainly taught by uh, Briggs about the year 1700. It is surprising how a man of such general reading as Mr. Williams was could be ignorant of it and fully attribute the invention to Newton. But it does not wonder that Briggs' remarks was unknown to Newton, who owed almost everything to genius and deep meditation, but very little to readings. And I know no doubt that he made a discovery himself without any light from Greeks. Then St. Colebrook dis certainly of Hindu algebra resulting from all the proceedings and investigations by men like R. Reuben F. Wilford and S. David Edward Stephen and John Taylor. John Taylor, like Rajiv Dixit also has told about John Taylor, etc. And from these own considerable knowledge. in the learner's survey and comparing of the development in Europe and India. But the conclusion of the Indian algebra, etc., may have had the independent development proved difficult from him to digest, and reserving the speculus of Reuben, he came to the conclusion that the algebra of the Greek imperfect through the admit it to be was made known to the Hindus by their Grecian instruments in improved astronomy. Okay, so they have told that no, in the Indians they got the information from there, so that is not possible. So always they are changing the history. So, however, through indifferent and tested stated that it could not have been derived from Greece community, and Bolingbroke opinion is added. Mr. Bolingbroke, after demonstration of excellence of his algebra and comparing its more perfect algorithm and its superior advancement with the Greek algebra, as explained in the work of Diophaskod, she nearest willing to admit that some communications about the time of the last generated author may have some of its may have some from the Greece of into India. So on the subject of algebraic analysis, so of this we are inclined to doubt for his simply reasons that the Greek had nothing to give on that subject which it worth with the while of the Indian to receive. Mr. Conran seemed inclinable to his concessions by the strength of physiology arguments, of the force of which we are perhaps not sufficiently sensible. It seems, however, certain that the fact in the history of algebra and lessons taken by themselves given no countersense to the suppositions, but wishing to be gracious and charitable. So he inferred that by the integrity of the Hindu scholars, the hint was rendered faithful, and the algebraic methods were soon ripped from the slender beginning to the advanced state of well arranged science. As contrasted with the 18th century European considerations and discussions on Indian science, the account of Indian technology did not give rise to a passionate controversy. Perhaps such passion was neither possible nor necessary, as it ordinarily did not challenge any fundamental European dogma or beliefs. So, the result of the technology were there for all the observants and utilize, and it may incidentally be the lack of such controversy itself that explain the complete current ignorance of most aspect of this technology. It appears that Indian medical men, with whatever name they will be termed to the at the end of the 18th century, made considerable use of surgical technology in different part of India. According to the Colonel Kate in surrogacy, in which they are considered to use the latest, least advanced, then they often succeeded in removing ulcers and cutaneous irritations, eruptions of the worst kind, which was baffled and skill of our surgeons by the process of including inflammations and by means of different opposites to our which they are probably long being processing. The Mr. H. Scott seem to be collaborate the above and further reports the prevalence of plastic surgery in Western India. In these letters of President and President of the Royal Society, London, in 1972, he stated. So in that whatever like in our India that particular time before Britishers, we are doing all our best surgical operations and our removal of different type of tumors and this kind of all bad things from the our different part of the body. And we are doing our plastic surgery and all everything. We are having a good surgeons also in our Western India. So we have plenty of people who are highly educated in this professional. But like these peoples from London and all, when they came here, okay, for invading us, then that time they found that they don't have anything in their country, and they have learned it so many things from India. They have taken it from many things from India, so that in their country they can be like more better way to do it. Okay, and they have given the name of that surgery and whatever medical facility and everything according to them only. So that is the case which he has discussed in this. Then in medicine, I shall not be able to phrase their science very much. It is one of those arts which is too delicate in its nature to being war and possession and the revolutions of the government. The effect of surgical operations were more obvious and more easily acquired and lost by no means so ready. Here I would have made a phrase these practices with great success of operation of depressing the crystalline lens, then becoming opaque, and from time immediately they have cut from the stone at the same place which they are not done in Europe. They are curious facts and in I believe unknown before of us. So they are totally unknown. Before coming to India, then only they will know what all things are there. Before that, they don't know anything. How this thing can be done also. Okay, so it is not like as per their thinking. It is not highly. It's highly impossible to do this kind of surgeries, plastic surgeries, and all everything. And they have once they came in India, they have stayed here for so long in the deep villages and all. They are how they are doing it. They have seated, they have made their own notes based on our Indian textures, and then they have gone there in Europe and they have written down all the things. Then based on their this thing whatever, then they have made everything according to them. Okay, so now 2 years later he referred to the putting on a nose on those who lost them and sent to London a quantity of the cement used for uniting animal parts. Okay, so like animal parts also how they are uniting. So these all things they have sent it back to their country in London. So before that they are even not thinking that it can be possible also. So the inoculation against the smallpox seemed to have been universal, if not throughout, in large part of northern and southern India, till it was banned in Calcutta and other places under the Bengal presidency from around 1802 and 03. It banned in banning undoubtedly was done in the name of humanity and justified by the Superintendent General of Vaccine from the cow for use in coalition against smallpox was manufactured by Dr. General in 1798. Okay, so they have discovered the things in India like smallpox, how they are doing the vaccinations part, and then same they have made it with this Jenner and Dr. E. Jenner in 1788 manufactured by this thing. So they have given the person name like according to them, like he has discovered it, but it was already there in India before that. From then on, this vaccine replaced the previous variously matter taken from human agents. Okay, hence the method using the vaccine came to be called vaccine inoculations and inoculations in this first report in March 1804. Okay, so based on that only they have done like vaccination part also, like no, we are doing it and we have discovered it and all, but it was there in India before that itself. So the most detailed account of the practice of inoculation against the smallpox in India is by J. Hornwell, written by him for the College of Physicians in London. Okay, so after giving the details of the indigenous practices, Hornwell stated in chapter 8, page 158, when the before resist treatment of the inoculated is strictly followed, it is next to the miracle to hear that 1 in 1 million fail to receiving the infection or of the one that miscarriage under it. It is possible that Hornwell information was not an accurate, as the newly appointed Superintendent General of Vaccinations inoculation in 1804, according to the letter, facilitant amongst the inoculations were sounded was around one of its 1 in 200 amongst the Indian population, amongst the European Calcutta, etc. One in 60th and 70th this thing. The wider risk, however, seemed to have been in the spreading of disease by contagious from the inoculated themselves to those who were one reason or another had not been thus inoculated. Okay, so they have got that whatever textures are there in India and practices they are doing in India, and based on that they have made all their statements in their textbooks. So it is possible that there was some areas in India where innovations did not prevail. This of course is a matter for inquiring, but however it appears to have been universal over. Okay, so a whole track after the innovations on British rule in Bengal, Bihar, Orissa, area of Madras Presidency, etc. The situation seemed to alter according to the Superintendent General of Vaccine Innovations. A section of peoples, either from indigenous or from principles, did not have longer series circa 1800 received the involutions. Those who did not receive it from principle seems to have been Europeans in Calcutta, etc. Partly it may have been due to greater mortality, etc., like one of his 16th and 17th as indicated above. Amongst them, further it may have all resulted from the presidency of Christian theoretical objections to any innovations against them.